So this morning we're going to continue a series on being generous. We've looked at all sorts of different things, being generous with our home, being generous with our forgiveness. I could go on. There must have been about 7 or 8 different messages. And today we're going to look at being generous with our friendships. Now, let me say that from the start that I'd have thought for all Christians, friendliness is just an attitude. It's just a way of life. I'd have thought a smile and a kind word and a listening ear towards those that we meet would have just been par for the course. So I'm not going to be talking about that today. Friendliness should be just part of us, our thankfulness for knowing Jesus and how friendly and how loving he's been to us. And there are different kinds of friends. There's people that you know, your neighbors, the guy that makes your coffee at Costa, those who you nod to in the mornings, people that you see, you give them a nod. You okay, mate? Yeah, I'm okay. There are Facebook friends. Apparently I have 398 and I don't even know how to use it. I really don't. I'm only on Facebook because it's part of my job. I've got 398 of them. And I know that some of our Facebook friends can actually be very, very good friends, but they're more from that cyber type of friendships, if you like. And then there are friends based around hobbies. I coach Sam's football team, Kyra, Ely, under 18s, not a bad side. We're going for second place, by the way. We're working on it. We're not going to get first, but we might get a runners-up. And I know some of you have friends around that. They're friends based around our hobbies. The hobby is the theme, and we mix with, for me, I mix with the parents and the players and anybody who comes to watch. That's the type of friendship that I have. It's linked around a theme. And then there are work friends. Most of us work in teams, and we try to get on well with our team, and some of them we have chemistry with, and we might call them friends. And then there are close friends. And I know that all of those friendships that I've mentioned so far can turn into close friends, but they might not as well. I'm talking about close friends today. And these are very few and far between. You can usually count them on one hand in your whole life. They're treasured. They're long-term. They're special, special friends. And in Bible times, this type of friend, next screen, would have been called a philos. A philos, it means beloved. It means dear. It's a tight friend. It's someone who's dearly loved and dearly prized in a personal and an intimate way. It's a trusted confidant. It's someone held dear in close, affectionate bond. It's experienced friendship with this type of friend. It's experience. It's not in theory. It's not something that you tell each other all the time. It's experienced. You know that you're friends because of the way it works out. It's experienced. And this is the word that Jesus is using in our passage today, in John 15, 12 through 15. And it's the type of friendship that I'm going to encourage you to be generous in today. I'm going to encourage all of us to be generous in. So this is the focus. So let me just lay some context down before we look at the passage and look at this type of generous friendship. So up until chapter 13, then we're going to look at chapter 15. You could turn to it if you want. You could open it up on your phone or on in your Bible if you carry one now, if anybody ever does. But open it up and you can have it there. We're going to look at it all the way through. But in chapter 13, coming up to it, Jesus has been busy with his ministry. But from chapters 13 to 17, he's preparing for the cross. Kath has talked about it today. He's preparing himself and he's preparing his disciples for the cross. He's been eating an evening meal with his disciples just before the Passover. He's poured his whole life into these 12 men for 3 years. He's held nothing back. He's offered himself to them. He's just given his whole life to them. May I remind us today that Jesus is the greatest friend. If we're going to talk about it today, Jesus is the greatest friend that you'll ever have. He's the greatest friend that I will ever have. No one you will ever find more giving, more loyal, more brave, and more kind than Jesus Christ. There'll never be a better friend. But this is a farewell. It's a farewell time between Jesus and his disciples. Jesus is the earthbound God-man. He's leaving the earth and he's going to replace himself with his spirit, but that actual physical presence is going to leave the earth. And during the meal, in his typical generous style, he's put a towel around his waist and got a basin in his hands, and he's been washing his disciples' feet. He loved his disciples and they loved him. They were truly philos, friends together. But there must have been an anxiety in the room because they knew Jesus was up to something. They knew something was going to happen. And maybe their questions were a bit like a little child when the mom or dad puts their hat and scarf on, just ready to go out. It's like, where are you going? That's what our kids used to do. Where are you going? And can we come? And who's going to be with us until you come back? Who's going to be in charge? I don't want my older brother to be in charge. I want to be in charge. It must have been a little like that. And then as Jesus began to walk through to the Garden of Gethsemane, maybe they stopped through a vine, a vineyard. Maybe they were walking that way. And that's when Jesus started chapter 15. He started to talk about vines. He started to talk about gardeners. He started to talk about branches and fruit and how they represented God the Father himself as the true vine. The disciples themselves as the branches, and then the fruit that they were all going to bear. That's the context of what I want to talk about today in friendship. So let's read it then on the screen. It's coming up on the screen, but hold it there in your Bibles because that's where we're going to stick today. So he talks about all of these things, and then he says to them, my command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that he lays down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. For everything that I learned from my Father, I've made known to you. Now, as Jewish men, when they heard this, not only would they have been incredibly privileged and incredibly overwhelmed to hear Jesus say that to them, it would have taken their minds to a wedding and what a bridegroom's friend has to do. You see, the bridegroom would choose a special friend, a philos friend. And he put that friend in charge of taking care of everything for the bride's family. Taking care of the bride, taking care of the whole family in 2 or 3 weeks before the wedding. This bridegroom's friend would spend his money, his resources, and his time making sure everything was prepared, making sure everything was good and just how it needed to be. This bridegroom's friend would go all out to make sure that the wedding, which would last a week, by the way, was all good, all ready, well prepared, and he'd do it for his friend, the bridegroom. And then on the day of the wedding, a fantastic occasion, he'd listen for the bridegroom's voice, because he knew that when the bridegroom's voice came into his ear, the bridegroom had come for the bride, and today they were going to get married. He knew that his job was done, and he'd fulfilled what his friend had asked him to do. Jesus' philos friend, John the Baptist, who'd been preparing the way for Jesus, refers to this in the text. Let's have a look. Next screen. Here's what he says. It's that same scene. The bride belongs to the bridegroom. The friend who attends the bridegroom waits and listens for him, and he's full of joy when he hears the bridegroom's voice. That joy is mine, and it's now complete. That's what he said when he heard Jesus speaking, because he knew that his job of preparing the way was done. But I suppose that this morning, what I'd love for us to do is to think about how Jesus was a philos friend, how John the Baptist was a philos friend, how the friend of the bridegroom is a friend, and how we can be generous friends to our philos friends. I think there's at least 4 marks that can show friendship, if you like, deep friendship to a philos friend. The first, next screen, would be constancy. Constancy. Jesus, you see, had been a constant, reliable presence to his philos friends. He hadn't let them down. He pleads with them. In verse 9, he says, remain in my love. Remain there. He's saying to them, stay available to me, like I've stayed available to you. Even when it gets uncomfortable, don't shrink back from me. Stay with me. Remain in me. Stick with me, like I have and will stick with you. And that's how it is with our close friends. We need to know from our philos friends. They need to know from us that they've got that security to know we're available. Available in the good times. Available in the bad times. Available even in the ordinary times. That we're reliable friends. That we're generous friends. And we give our time and our resources and everything that we've got in order to keep that friendship good. And it's that constancy in our philos friendships that give us that common love and that mutual vision that we can have as friends. You can't force it. You have to live it. You have to be constant. And that's how we live that generous life. I'm going to introduce you to a long-term philos friend of mine. This is me and Jim in the days when shorts were short. And I'm a little bit embarrassed by those shorts, but hey, I'm 52 now, I don't care. These were the shorts that we wore, get over it. And so here's Jim and myself. He's a good old Yorkshireman from Bradford. I met him before I was a Christian at Staffordshire University. We did a sports degree together, both good sportsmen, and we both thought we were tough. You know, really tough. And we'd boast about the tackles that we made and the fouls that we made and the people that we'd roughed up, maybe the people that we'd been intimidating to. And Jim also was a semi-pro cricketer. And he'd tell me with great pride how he'd beam the cricket ball at the batsman's head when he first came in just to soften him up. Some of you know that, if you're cricketers. I'd beam it at his head, he'd say. You know, what you want to do is kind of beam it, just come low enough that he's got a duck, and then you look him straight in the eye, and you say, have a bit of that. You get ready for me, you know. And we'd talk about how tough we are, but we got a little secret. And a little secret was that we loved the Love Songs Hour from 11 p.m. to 12 midnight on Stoke Sound. And we'd listen to it every night. His room was next to mine, and we would sing through the wall. And I'm not gonna subject it to my voice today, but some of you are gonna know those 80s love songs. You know, Stevie Wonder. You know, I'm not gonna sing them, but you think of those love songs coming. Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston's love songs. You know, what can I say? Luther Vandross, Lionel Richie, Diana Ross. You can see how passionate I am. And we would sing through the wall. It would go on for an hour, and Jim would sing, and I would sing, and we'd be crying, laughing by the end of the hour, because we knew that we wanted to have this tough persona. But between Jim and I, we knew that we loved those love songs. And we grew closer and closer, and we were constant for each other. He knew that I was available to him. I knew that he was available to me. He was a constant philos friend. Second mark of a generous philos friend is connectedness. Jesus says in the passage, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that he laid down his life for his friends. He says, stay emotionally connected with each other like I've modeled to you. Invest in each other. Pour your lives into each other. Be connected. I think any parent in the room will tell you that they're only as happy as your unhappiest child, right? You can only be as happy as that. You know, I used to say that my many injuries in sport, 9 surgeries, was kind of my brokenness, if you like. It had broken me. It had softened me. I'd had to watch as my sporting life was just slowly taken away, and it had broken me and made me into a softer man and given me the gift of brokenness. But I tell you, having children, you experience a whole new level of brokenness. That's when my boys come home injured. When the boys come home injured, it's nothing like, it's on a whole new level when they're injured, when they're ill, when my wife's ill, when anything to do with those kind are ill. I can only be as happy as my my least happy child. That's connectedness. You get connected and you forget yourself. And you're so focused in on them. That's what connectedness is. Next screen. Now, here we are again. Shorts are still short, I'm afraid. So when Jim comes to see me in 1992, God gets hold of him. We were both working in football, we were both playing, we were both coaching. But he was in Leeds and I was in Houston. By the middle of the week of him coming to see me, he was beginning to say, you know, when I coach, it's just football. But you give your kids football and hope and purpose and a reason to live well. There's something different going on here in Houston than what I can get up to in Leeds. Now, we had a bit of a conversation, Jim and I, and by the end of the week, Jim had become a Christian. Not only had he become a Christian, but he'd also been baptized. He was literally saved and baptized in the same service. And within 9 months, Jim had left Leeds and he'd come to Houston to work together. People began to say, we grew closer and closer together. People had even begun to say that we looked like each other. We kind of do, don't we? Is that right, that you grow closer, you start to look like each other? I don't know how it works. But we'd started to look like each other. We were so connected. Within 2 years, Jim had married Debbie, next screen. He'd become best man for me, and I'd become best man for him. And the four of us ran Youth Sports International. We shared the Christian message through football coaching. In a 6-year period, we'd coached thousands of people from the age of 5 through 35. Over 1,000 had become Christians. That's how you connect. You connect as you work together. You connect as you come closer. And this was the type of friendship that we were. There was strong connectedness, strong constancy. But a third mark of a generous friend, next screen, is honesty. Jesus says, you are my friends if you do what I command. He's saying, friendship isn't all about the lovey-dovey and the love song sung through your wall. It's not all about the make you happy stuff. I'm so glad to be with you. We have a great time together. Sometimes it's about telling the truth. He says, Jesus says, you'll prove you're my friend when you follow my commands, when you're doing what I'm asking you to do. Jesus was a truth teller. And he was saying, if I'm your friend, prove it. Prove it. Show me that you're my friend. You see, generous, philos friends tell each other the truth. Next screen. Proverbs tells us this. Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. See, a friendly wound might hurt you at the time, but it's what you need. Sometimes it's what you need to become the person that God wants you to be. You see, we can hold back on our philos friends. We can say that we care too much to comfort them. It's hard. We know it's hard. But may I offer to you this morning that sometimes behind that philosophy lurks such a needy emotional connectedness that you don't speak up because of the pain caused to you, not just to your friend. We're afraid of ourselves. We're afraid of the pain it will bring us. We're afraid of losing our friend, and we don't tell him the truth. But a philos friend tells the truth. After 6 excellent years in Houston, the Lord called me to full-time seminary in Fort Worth, 400 miles away. Weren't Jim and I to be constant friends, always available to each other? Weren't we supposed to be connected friends? Was it a situation that neither of us could be happy if the other wasn't happy? Were we that connected? Were we supposed to be? We both agreed that I had been called. I had definitely been called to Fort Worth to go to seminary. But somehow through it, our relationship began to struggle. We said some things that we shouldn't. We did some things that we shouldn't. My communication with Jim, I admit, was especially poor. And after all of those Philos friend years, we were hanging on a thread with him in Houston and me in Fort Worth, 400 miles away. For the next 3 years, while I was at seminary, Jim was hurting and I was hurting. We put space between each other. We spoke on the phone. We sent each other birthday cards and Christmas cards, but it was difficult. After 3 years, I received a letter from Jim, and I remember it. It was long, but on the whole, it was loving and kind. He said that we'd always be friends, and after this letter, it was time to move on. But I remember in the letter, Jim told me strongly that I'd communicated poorly with him, that I'd said some things I shouldn't, that I'd done some things that I shouldn't, and that I'd hurt him badly. I was hurt. He was hurt. I didn't agree with all of the letter, but I'll tell you what, the letter rang true. The letter spoke to me because it was the truth of a friend. And we had some repairing to do. He was telling me the truth as he saw it, and that's what Philos friends do. Friends tell each other the truth. A fourth mark of a generous friend, next screen, is good counsel. Jesus says this, I no longer call you servants, because a servant doesn't know his master's business. Instead, I've called you friends. For everything that I learned from my Father, I've made known to you. He's saying, I've trusted you. I've told you about my business. You know many, many things about me. You're not my employees. You're my closest friends. Proverbs says that the sweetness of a friend comes with their earnest counsel. The word Hebrew, in the earnest means from the heart. The word counsel means secret. That's what good counsel is. It's sharing your earnest secrets from the heart. That's what you do with your Philos friends. The secrets of your heart. You confide in an intimate way. You tell them the way you feel about them. They tell you how they feel about you. They speak into your life. It can be dangerous because if they turn against you, you look like a fool. If they turn against you, things can be said that shouldn't be said. They were private and they get said anyway. But there's a generosity about it. There's a special beauty about it because you trust that person and you tell them your secrets. And you'll be happy to know Jim and I are back on track after all of that. That's what you do with your Philos friends. You get back on track. We email each other. We Skype each other. And about 3 months ago, he sent me something that I'll always keep. It was very special to read the email. This is what it said. Hey, Rob, hope your family's doing well. Just checking in to see how everything is going. Let's catch up again by Skype. Also, after our morning Bible study on 1 Corinthians 3, we were encouraged to thank those who had a major influence in our lives, just like Paul with the Corinthians. So thank you, Rob, for caring enough about me to share Jesus all those many years ago. Who would have thought I'd been sharing him in the US for the next 24 years? I'm grateful for the opportunity you gave me to work with you in YSI and the leadership lessons I learned while ministering alongside you. Not only were you my best man, but to this day, I still consider you my best friend. Please know how much I value you, respect you, and love you. I wrote back and I told him how much I valued him, how much I respected him. Because we're on the journey, you see. We're on the Philos friend journey. And these are the things that happen. These are the beautiful things. But there's been a lot of difficult things as well. And that's what generous friendship requires. Constancy, connectedness, honesty, and good counsel. And Jim and I haven't always done it perfectly, and neither will you with your Philos friends. But this is our task. This is how we're generous. Generous friendship costs. It's an expensive price, and it takes courage, and it takes lots of time, and it takes great loyalty, but it will be worth it. I ask you to stick at it with your Philos friends. In fact, I lay down a challenge to you this morning. How about picking up the phone to your Philos friend this afternoon and telling them that you value them, that you respect them, and that you love them. God bless you this morning.